Tighten your lines as we get ready to sail the seven seas on the Political Pirate Podcast. Join Captain Ted Yoho and the salty dog John Martin as they search far and wide for the greatest treasure of all, the truth. From local Florida news to nationwide stories and the globe beyond, we've got it all mapped out. Now here's your hosts, the salty dog John Martin and Captain Ted Yoho.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 3 Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast, with your host here, the old salty dog, John Martin, and, of course, the captain of our pirate ship, none other than Ted Yoho. Good morning to you, Ted.
Morning to you, John, on this Memorial Day, and it's great to see you. I see you got a nice, it would be a good key shirt to have down here. You're looking good.
Yeah, this is my kind of flowery look here.
Yeah, we're still in the Keys, and that's good. You should. The wind's blowing pretty puffy out there, so we haven't been going out in the boat a lot, but fishing off the dock and catching some nice mangroves. Caught a yellowtail, nice yellowtail the other day off my dock.
That's cool. Well, the great news for us is over the weekend, last night and the night before, we actually got some decent rain.
That's what I heard.
Actual thunderstorms, and man, is it a blessing because we have been without for months.
Sure have. I've heard that up in my neighborhood, up in Wheelack, the Good Life community.
Absolutely.
They've gotten plenty of rain, yeah.
Well, before we get started into the meat and potatoes of the show, let me just do a couple of housekeeping things here. First of all, we really appreciate all of our sponsors. We appreciate people getting on board with us. Call Freddie. You see that tagline up there? If you'd like to help us push this cause forward and keep it going and expand it, make that call. Call Freddie. And Ted's going to tell you about one of our local sponsors right now.
I sure will. I'm glad to do it. Archer Automotive. Phone number is 352-495-2485. And call them for anything you need on a car. I mean, they're just great people. Richard and his crew out there, and Joe, who's running the shop now, they've been in business for over 20 years, and they'll service full service diesel, gas repair, transmissions, motors, tires, brakes, you name it, they repair it. And the biggest thing I can say about them, they're just great people. Again, the phone number is 352-495-2485. And we appreciate their support.
Well, today, as you said earlier, Ted, today is Memorial Day. And I love that picture we've got up there right now, because that pretty much symbolizes, there's all kind of, when you show the flag, and of course they're going to have celebrations all the way from small towns to Arlington National Cemetery. But to me, Ted, that picture right there really shows what it's all about.
It really does, John, and good pick out there. It really does. And, you know, we've got so much to be thankful in this country, and we wouldn't have the liberties and freedoms we have if there weren't people willing to serve in our military and lay their life on the line for this country. So the memory of all those people, we really appreciate them and their families for the service they did to this country.
Yeah, well, I heard bits of a little bit of a speech from in the past, from after World War II. I think it was actually in the 50s, and one of the generals was giving a speech. I was going through a bunch of stuff, and basically, he talked about that idea of the last full measure, but he said that our young people were so great. The young kids was the reason why they were able to do what they were able to do, and that so many came together and were willing to lay their lives on the line for a belief, basically. Not only obviously for their families and their loved ones and fellow countrymen, but really and truly, if you get right down to it, it really comes down to faith and a belief in the greatness of America and a cause worth sacrificing your life for.
It really is. It's an ideology. And the game, you go back to the roots how this country started. It was a religious freedom. The Pilgrims, were the first big group that came over. And, it's been built since then. And it was to get to way, we got to the Revolutionary War when the words of the Declaration were written. by Thomas Jefferson, and the war that ensued, the Revolutionary War. And it was we hold these truths to be self-evident. And it goes on from there, that our rights come from a creator, the right to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. No other country has that in their written document. And there's a reason Ho Chi Minh read our Declaration of Independence in Vietnam, and I think it was in the 30s or 40s. And then there was the Indonesians. Did I freeze up?
For a second there, I think. Go ahead.
And there's a reason that Indonesia copied our rule of government and our ways, and many countries around the world. It's because it's the first time in human history that a government was formed to protect our God-given rights, not from what Tim Kaine says, the senator from Virginia, that says your rights come from government. Guys got it completely backwards. And I think that, and I hate to get into this, but that's the ideal of the whole Democrat Party, Communist Party, is your rights come from government, and they will tell you how much you're going to make and those things. But I'm getting off on Memorial Day. We just thank everybody who did serve, who are serving, and those that paid the ultimate price, because we live the ultimate life here.
Well, to me, the only thing I would add to that, Ted, is it's all, I have no issue with celebrating with family, having the hot dogs, hamburgers, the whole beach scene. Celebrate freedom without a doubt. Only thing I ask is that at some moment over today's time, if it's individually or as a group, you take even 30 seconds to just kind of pause and thank God and the American soldier for the freedom that we have. Just take that moment. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn out thing, just a moment.
That's right. Fly the flag. Honor
Absolutely.
and respect it. Yeah.
Well, we're talking about an idea that America is, and it is an experiment. It still is an experiment, and it's still a relatively new experiment. We're celebrating 250 years of being an actual country, which in the scheme of things is just a flicker of time. But sometimes I look at Ted, I look what's happening, and I wonder how in the world do people come up with some of these cockamamie ideas and actions, and do they seem to understand how special this country is and what all has been sacrificed to make it? And the example I want to bring up is there's a lady, a Sacramento, California city councilwoman who is running for Congress of all things, has repeatedly turned her back on the American flag and refused to say the Pledge of Allegiance at the opening of their city council meetings. And I think we have a picture of it. There she is with her back turned to it, and she refuses to say the pledge. I mean, we're going to talk about it a little more in depth, but what are your thoughts when you see something like this, Ted?
Somebody like that, they have no business running for Congress. But, John, that's the state of affairs in America. You look at Zoran Madani, you look at AOC, you look at the communists, the avowed communists in Albany, New York, and the one in the mayor of Seattle. This is the movement going on in this country. And this is why people need to listen to our show, to wake up and say, this is happening right in front of you. This is the frog being boiled slowly. The heat's being turned up slowly on them. This is happening right in front of us. We need to stomp these people out. And what I mean by stomping them out is vote them out of office. Don't let them get the reins of power in Congress. I mean, this is just, it's ridiculous. I mean, this lady, she's of the Hmong sect that came over from Vietnam and Cambodia during her family came over. Maya Vang, who's vying for California's 7th congressional seat. She's the fringe left member of the Sacramento City Council, and she's turning her back on our country. So is she going to, serve this nation, or is she going to serve it as poorly as Ilhan Omar or Rashid Tlaib? Tlaib Rashid. Their allegiance is not to this country; it's to their home country, Palestine and Somalia, and we don't need her in this country.
Yeah, well, the thing is,
we don't need her. Excuse me, we don't need her in this country in politics.
Absolutely, and the thing about it, and we talked a little bit about this on Friday's show, that you you'd be tempted if you're from, say, Welaka, or you're from, say, Hawthorne, or, some in Indiana or somewhere, you may brush this off and think, well, she doesn't have a shot and all that kind of stuff. But like we talked about on Friday, that lady in Texas that made all those vulgar statements, I won't rehash them all today, but she won enough votes to get into a primary,
right,
to run for Congress, which means that people in that district are voting on her. And even more so, this lady, this Vang lady, she is sitting on the Sacramento City Council. And some polling shows her ahead in her primary. So she's getting support from registered Democratic voters, because that's who votes in these particular elections. She's getting votes, and she is espousing all this nonsense and basically disrespect to America. So it is not just something casual. It is happening. And of course, you mentioned a few minutes ago that Mandami won the mayor, and people may tend to forget, but this is a guy who called for globalizing the intifada, which means kill all non-believers, not just our Jewish brethren, but all non-believers in the Islamic faith. And he's now the mayor of New York. So this threat is real.
The mayor of New York, after what happened on 9/11, with over 3,000 Americans that got probably one of the most brutal deaths you could have, an airplane running into the Twin Towers, airplanes. And, it was a jihadist movement. It was an Islamic terrorist move that destroyed that. And now that city, 25 years later, has elected an avowed Islamist that doesn't like this nation. And he's working to destroy it. That's how fleeting memory is in the American public. That's why we have to teach these things in school, on podcasts. We have to educate people, because this is happening right in front of us. America is changing right in front of us. And I think we can thank Obama for that. The fundamentally transformation of America. This is what we're getting. It's on steroids. And again, we've said this over and over again. Trump has put but a pause on this movement. When Trump leaves office, if we don't have another strong conservative that puts America first, and obviously May Vang, who will not pledge allegiance to America, it makes you wonder, who's she going to pledge allegiance to?
Yeah, she won't even look at the flag during the pledge at all. She's worse than taking a knee. But this is happening all across America, Ted. There's a guy that is leading the Democratic primary for U.S. Senator in Michigan that literally stood beside a guy who said, you mentioned 9/11, who said that America deserved 9/11, and with a group of people chanting death to America, not on the streets of Tehran, but on the streets of Detroit, Michigan. I mean, yep. So it's real as it gets right now.
El Said in Michigan. He's a very well educated. He's a doctor, and I think an epidemiologist. And he is of Middle Eastern descent. And he's got an ideology that's different than the founding of this country. This, again, is something that's very well covered in the book of Samuel Huntington's The Clash of Civilizations. And so you've got the communists are working against America. You've got the Islamist movement moving against America. You got the Democrat Socialist Party working against the very basic fabric of what America was designed for. This is really the beginnings of the internal struggle that leads to a civil war. These kind of movements that are going in, they're gaining momentum. And they use the justice system against anybody that speaks out against them, like the Southern Poverty Law Center, that'll go after them. And thank God Trump's in there, and he has shaken it up a lot to where it's throwing them off their game. But again, I remind people, President Trump and the cabinet he has in there is but a temporary pause on this movement. And if he loses and the Democrats get in charge, they'll be back on steroids. They'll pack the court. They'll change laws. This country will change forever. And I don't think anybody wants that in this country, really, when you get down to it. And so I'm going to turn it back to you, John.
Well, she made this statement, Ted, And I want to, instead of just reading the whole thing, I'm going to read parts of it and let's kind of break it down. This is from this, let me say her name again, Mia Fang. She's running for Congress in California's 7th district. She is on the Sacramento city council right now. But this is what she said. So she says here, as much as I love this country, really, I use that moment, the moment she turns her back to the flag, to ground myself, she says, to center our communities and remind myself of the injustices and the harm that continue to affect so many, both locally and across the globe, under this nation's influence. So the United States is a bad influence on the world and people in this country. What are your thoughts on that, Ted? I mean, it's just crazy.
Mei Fang, if you're listening, and I hope you are, you know, I'm glad you say you love this country. But when you want to talk about how bad this country is and center our community and remind myself of the injustices and harm that continue to affect so many, both locally and across the globe, under this nation's influence, I want to take you back to Vietnam prior to the Vietnamese War. Look at all the death and destruction that was going on by the communists. Look at Cambodia under Pol Pot. You know, how many, he killed 1 or 2 million people. Look at what's going on in Iran. Look at what China is doing, forced organ harvesting. Look at Cuba with the suppression down there. Look at any communist country and the suppression in those countries and the death and destruction and the lack of freedom and liberties. And you want to say that you can't honor this nation and pledge allegiance to this flag? You know, if America falls, you know, good luck to you and where you want to go, because you're going to be a minority. And you know, I just don't understand the reasoning of these people. You know, they obviously weren't educated in the way I was educated on American versus communism and the goodness of America. We're not a perfect nation. I mean, like we've talked before, John. I'm in it. You're in it. We're not perfect people, but it's a perfect system if we work the system and don't bastardize it.
Yeah, it's definitely the best one we've found so far, for sure. But she goes on to say this, Ted, we must not tune out. They want, I don't know who they is, but she says they want us to become numb to the realities we see in the news. And when I read that, my first thought was numb to the realities. You came from Cambodia, like fleeing the peaceful killing fields of Cambodia. And we got a picture we put up there that just kind of sums up. This is a young child walking by literally a stack of skeletons and that type of thing. It's just crazy. But
it really is.
That they think that way. I mean, she talks about numb to the realities of America. It just, go ahead, Ted, help me.
No, you're speechless. You know, you're just frustrated. You know, it just, again, it's from a lack of history of where they came from, her founding country or her home country, you know, where they came from, Cambodia and all that stuff that went on and still going on over there, the suppression that they have over there. You know, we were right. Carolyn and I were in Vietnam, then we went to Laos and never went to Cambodia. But it is a disaster over there in those countries, and the infrastructure, all that, the freedom. And so, you know, lady, I would ask you to be thankful for where you at, kiss the ground you're on, work to make it a better nation, and don't tear it down. And please don't join with the squad and those radicals. Those are the people that want to tear this country down and, you know, get away from, you know, what we do with liberty and freedom in this country. That extends it to everybody. You know, I'm tired of it, and I know you're sick of it too. How the Democrats and you've got AOC and those people that are down in the South trying to rejuvenate the South and bringing out all these racism comments that they're making, saying how the white patriarch has suppressed all these people. Yet when you look around, I see a lot of minorities driving Mercedes and Cadillacs and SUVs, and I'm down here in the Keys, and you know, I have never seen so many nice boats with 3 and 4 engines on there, and I see very few Anglo-Saxons driving those. I see a lot of people that have benefited from the American system.
And let's most, if not all, but a lot of American citizens of color, if you want to put it that way, are truly great Americans and are grateful to be here. So it's really a select few but they seem to be gaining power. That's what scares me. All you got to do is look, and I said this last week, but it's true. All you got to do is look at the candidates that are on the Democratic side that are running for mayor of LA, including the incumbent, and governor of the great state of California. And my God, it is a rogues gallery of fools, the way it looks to me. And I'm not even trying to talk about Democrat versus Republican. I mean, somebody please tell me one decent candidate that is actually running for office, apparently in California on the Democratic side. But she goes on to say this, Ted. She said, but instead, we resist. I don't know who the left is. She said it's part of a plan to keep us complacent. In other words, being patriotic. She says we surround ourselves with loved ones. And I picked out this one picture. Loved ones, my God, man. But she says we must remain vigilant. And that much I agree with her on. I don't agree with what she might say vigilant because, Ted, that is the whole purpose of our show, for us to remain vigilant so we can educate, motivate, and activate people. So we're in agreement there. Probably not the same reasons, but we are in agreement there.
We're the Paul Revere of our times, ringing the bell and carrying the lanterns through the streets. The British are coming, except now it's the socialists, it's the communists, it's the anti-American, it's the resist crowd. I don't know what they're resisting. Why don't you go out and get a job and work? It's always worked well for me. And just take advantage of having opportunity. And that's what America provides over so many other countries.
But this next part of her statement, we're almost done with it. She says, and stay steadfast in the fight for equity, justice, and humanity. How about life, liberty, and the pursuit, not the guarantee of happiness? That's what the guys fought for, men and women that kept us safe, that we're honoring today on Memorial Day. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's
well said there.
Yeah, but she says, then she goes on, that we got this. I love you all. And I don't know about all, but I love the American people. And I want to show one more picture of Memorial Day, because to me, as I say, this is about it. You talk about coming together. We need to salute these families because we tend to forget.
Absolutely.
We focus, and rightfully so, on the members that are serving and those that have fallen. But really, some of the true heroes are the families as well. Can you imagine having to go through life as a teenager or something, or just a small child, having maybe never known your father, and that we're a hero and all that? I mean, that they pay as much, if not more, of a sacrifice than the men and women that actually gave their lives.
They sure do. And then you get the nonsense that goes on in Congress, with government shutdowns. There was a period of time where the military wasn't getting paid. The Coast Guard doesn't get paid. ICE patrol agents don't get paid. And they put their life on the line every day so that we can continue to have the liberties and freedoms we have. And so with somebody like this lady, with their background, their family background, like you said, the scary thing is she got elected. There was enough people to put her in office. And this whole thing with the fight for equity, justice, and humanity, I just want to go give them a big bear hug and say, oh, I'm with you, God bless you. But, that's not reality, John. You're everybody's dealt the same hand in America, in today's America. There was a time where maybe that wasn't true, but in today's America, you're dealt the same hand. You go out and create life the way you want it, and don't accept anybody else's excuse or anybody else saying you can't do something. You just go out and you work, play by the rules, and you'll achieve in here. I don't want an Obama saying you should nobody needs to make more than $250,000, or AOC saying oh, you can't become a billionaire by working. I mean, these people, I don't want to listen to them because I don't believe that. I want to believe I can become those things. And Carol and I have been blessed that we've been able to do that. People I know, like Richard and Cecile Fiegel, that own Archer Automotive, they have been blessed because they went out and worked an opportunity in this country that allowed them to achieve. And then, you know what? The thing that the fight for equity, justice, and humanity, that's really sounds great, but you forgot to put in, you got to work for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break. But before we do, I'll remind you, Ted already talked about Archer Automotive, one of our sponsors. But if you'd like to support the show, call Freddie. Make that call. And we'll be right back, Ted. Check out this commercial from none other than the head ball coach himself.
Hi there, this is Coach Steve Spurrier, and I want to let you know that by popular demand, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill's delicious brunch is now served in a premium buffet. You have spoken, we have listened, and we're now serving Gainesville's only elevated buffet, complete with an omelet station, ginger sage chicken sausage, shredded short rib, plus you can enjoy bottomless mimosas and Bloody Marys. So join us every Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3 for the best brunch in town.
And we're back to the 3 Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast. And you just heard from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. Normally on a Monday, I'm in that studio, but not today, just taking kind of some time off and spend with my family and all that. But that's the old head ball coach. And, we talk about it as a great restaurant, which it is. And, of course, it celebrates sports, especially college sports and all things Gators. But if you actually go there, Ted, too, you get a sense of patriotism as well. That's not like the theme of it. But when you watch all the young people, the pictures of the various players that Coach Spurrier has done, and you go back to what like Hakeem Jeffries was trying to say about, boycotting the SEC and all that kind of stuff. But if you look at what the theme of that restaurant is, it basically is showing the greatness of America, the opportunity for everyone to excel based on their own efforts and all of that. So it's much more than just a restaurant and sports memorabilia. To me, it is the essence of Americana.
Sure. Remind me, did Hakeem Jeffries say that black athletes should avoid the SEC?
He said they should not only avoid it, but boycott it.
Did he say black athletes?
He was talking about, he didn't say the word black athletes, but he was saying that they were surrounded there and they were supporting the NAACP. And he was he did talk about voters' rights and all that. So I think he said everything but the word black athletes, but that's clearly what he meant.
Again, race baiting, and come on, Hakeem Jeffries, come out of here. That's an old message. It doesn't work. People don't buy into that. And it's funny because, all this redistricting and, they're mad at the Republicans. Of course, they were doing it too in California, and they've done this previously in the past. I just was reading an article before the show started about Debbie Wasserman Schultz is moving into Sheila Flores McCormick Flores' seat, the lady that got thrown out of Congress for the $5 million COVID fraud. And Wasserman Schultz district got mixed up. And so she doesn't want to leave Congress. God forbid she leaves Congress. So she's going to run in a primarily black district, Latino black district. And she's telling everybody why she deserves to stay because she's got seniority, she's got clout. No, you don't, Debbie. You just think you have those things. You're trying to convince people that you don't own that seat. It's the people's seat. And I hope they throw you out.
Yeah, well, you mentioned about her basically keeping a black woman from running, maybe, or a black man. But it reminds me of, you talk about like the Black Caucus in Congress, and I know you know more about this than me, Ted, but there are some stellar black men, and I guess black women, but black men, that some of them got their start in athletics and all that are members of Congress that are not part of the Black Caucus,
right?
Simply because guess what they have in common beyond their black skin? They're Republicans. I mean, one of
Republican.
them, Byron Donalds, is running for governor of this state. I mean, I could go down the whole list, but and has got a good shot at winning, represents Congress right now and all that. But they talk about exclusion and inclusion, everything else, but they exclude black people simply because they are Republicans.
Yeah, I
Just
mean,
saying.
it really is, and it's like John Fetterman. If he starts talking in a voice of reasoning, which is really it just is mind-boggling, or it's amazing. John Fetterman, who would have thought 2 years ago he would be the voice of reason for the Democrat Party, and they're chastising him. They're running against him. But you brought up Byron Donalds running for governor. He's a nice guy. We've met him. He talked at the Black Tie and Blue Jeans that you and I were at in Alachua County, the Reagan Black Tie event that goes on. But there's also another person running, Paul Renner, and I encourage the listeners to check them both out and see which one you want to lead America. One is promoting big data centers that's going to consume a lot of land, farmland, energy, and water. The other one is promoting, life in America, life in Florida. That's going to protect a lot of our agricultural interests. So, maybe we should do a show on that and talk about them maybe next time before the primaries come up, because we've got two good candidates running.
Maybe we can get them both on the show. That'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to switch gears a little bit here, Ted, to talk about Iran and the latest thing on that, because my little headline I came up with is deal or no deal on Iran with a question mark. And I have to say, President Trump has been criticized, and people may think, oh, well, you never criticize President Trump. And that's not true. But the reason I don't go over the top criticize him is because, my God, the whole left side of the aisle, the whole 90% of the mainstream media just piles on so much. You don't need me to do it on top of that. But I will say this, it is somewhat confusing. I can see why the average American could be confused about the messaging coming out of the White House. I'm not confused. I understand it, but they could be easily confused about whether or not 1 minute we got a deal, 1 minute the nuclear is a real threat, the next minute it is, we took it all out, all that kind of stuff. So there is a potentially confusing message coming from the White House. And of course, the left just pumps that up like crazy. But what are your thoughts about the message and where we're at right now?
Well, it makes me think about May Vang. And you deal with Cory Booker and the people attacking Trump on Iran, who's she going to pledge allegiance to if it comes down between us and them? This whole thing with the deal with or no deal with on Iran, I think people know where I stand. And I think you and I have talked about this, John. I don't think we should have gone in there. I don't think Iran should have a nuclear weapon, but I think there's a better way that we could have done this, and it should have been thought out more. Had he thought through this, and I'm sure they did. They've got the analysts and all that, and they've got information you and I don't have. So I'll give them credit for that. But if I was going to disrupt the oil market and the economies around the world, I think I would have had things in place to be pumping and shipping oil out of America, replacing that, and then shut those straits down. And the thing with Iran is you can't negotiate with them. They're like the Chinese. They'll tell you anything you want to hear, and they're going to do the opposite of that. The communists are like that, but China is really bad at that. Iran is no different. We've been dealing this with over 47 years. I was in Congress for 8 years. I was there when the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the Obama plan with John Kerry, to where they said they had an Iranian deal that was going to prevent them from getting a weapon. No, it didn't. It postponed it for 10 years. They would have gotten a weapon. And, this back and forth is just disruptive, and it doesn't need to happen. Had Trump, again, strategized this more, that we would have been able to put more financial pressure on Iran by shipping oil out of here and having contracts with other nations to buy ours. Now that he's in this, we've got to get out of it, because what we all learned by dealing with Middle Eastern countries when we go into them, Iraq, Afghanistan, and others, and now Iran, is that there is no way to negotiate out of this. It has to be complete surrender 100%. And I think Trump just needs to start bombing, going in and in and in until they say, you know what, we're done. And then work with the regime, not a regime, I don't want to use that, work with the Iranian people to bring a sensible government out. We don't want to tell them what kind of government. We just want them to say, you take care of your people and we'll take care of ours. But don't threaten us for 47 years. Now the thing, John, is what do you do with North Korea? They've got nuclear weapons and they've said the same thing to us. So once you go in there, you better bring it to a complete final deal where there is no threat. And I just know that if we back off now and start giving concessions to Iran, it'll go right back where it was. But they're going to run harder too because they know that they're under threat by America.
Yeah, and I agree with you in principle, certainly with about North Korea. The only little caveat I would have put there, of course, I believe if Trump had been president during that time, they probably wouldn't have got nuclear weapons, but that's another story. No way to prove that. But the one thing, the slight caveat there is, and I'm not saying this is necessarily a good thing, it's just a thing, you got China that literally controls to a certain extent what happens in North Korea and China. Now, tomorrow that may be different, but today they don't want any kind of nuclear exchange. I know they have influence over Iran, but Iran is much more of a religious zealot. So I worry more about them having a nuclear weapon and what they would do than what I do North Korea, although certainly North Korea is something to be concerned about. But to me, there is a slight difference in that sense, but I could be wrong.
No, you're right. There is a difference. But, you know, when you got a country like North Korea that believes in nothing other than the Kim Jong-un family or his father and grandfather, they are the deity. They descended from the heavens and came down and they were blessed. They were the spiritual leaders of that country. That country is so backwards in that that they don't know anything outside of that. And so if Kim Jong-un gets a bad day and he decides to send a missile over here, which I don't think he's that way. I think the Ayatollahs would have absolutely death to America, you know. And so now that Trump's in there, bring it to fruition or bring it to a finality to where we don't have to worry about them again. And I would not give them any concessions until it's complete surrender, period.
Yeah, one thing about the latest Kim, as I always called over there, I mean, they are ruthless. He did put his own uncle to death by dog. So, you know, that's about as ruthless as it gets. The one thing I would add to it, though, and I'm chuckling just because I like to have a sense of humor about even bad stuff sometimes, is that you know, Kim is not worried about the 72 virgins or whatever. You know, he likes to eat, obviously. And so, yeah. You know, maybe he likes to stay on Earth for a while, whereas those Iranian fanatics think it gets better after they're gone. But, you know, to be fair, Ted, I want to play a video of Cory Booker, and he is talking about President Trump and the potential for a deal with Iran. So I'm going to give him about 30 or 40 seconds of airtime right now. Check this out.
When?
God willing.
So let me just ask you a question about Iran, because obviously we're still waiting for details. So there's so much I can ask you, but it appears to include a 60-day ceasefire, this memorandum of understanding with Iran, reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, an Iranian commitment to not pursue nuclear weapons. Now, the president's been very critical of the deal that Obama struck with Iran. Is this better than the deal Obama got with Iran?
So we haven't had an official briefing, but this is what I'm seeing that has me so outraged right now, is the president said he went into this to deal with their nuclear program.
Well, sorry about that. I didn't edit it, I guess, properly, Ted. My fault. But what Cory Booker said towards the end of that, I wanted to spare people the whole thing. He said that the Iranians are playing Donald Trump like a fool, and that somehow we were better off before Donald Trump became president and everything, basically talking about Obama and all of that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't say any president has handled Iran all that well. Certainly, Donald Trump probably has brought them closer to their knees than anyone else, and did take out their nuclear facility. So the future is still a little bit unwritten on that. But certainly the past presidents, let alone Obama, are not to be given a lot of credit, I don't think.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I don't think Cory Booker, I don't agree with this guy virtually on anything, but I think Trump is being played on this just the same way that Obama got played on it, the way Bill Clinton got played by him. You look at the Iranian nuclear deal, the JCPOA, Iran was going to get a nuclear weapon regardless in that. And then the JCPOA had nothing to do with intercontinental ballistic missile moratorium. So they were building those, as we've seen. They can shoot over Diego Garcia, which is thousands of miles away. That shows their capability. And then Obama gave them the money, and they were going to play nice. And Biden gave them the money, and they were going to play nice, and they did. And they're funding the largest funding of terrorists around the world, the Hezbollahs, Hamas, all these organizations that were. So
Recording in progress.
Recording just came back up.
Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Technical difficulties. But on an interesting side note about Cory Booker and what his election, he's got a primary coming up that he's unopposed in. So he's going to be reelected to the Senate. But what I find interesting about that is the Democrats aren't having primaries against incumbents at all. From what I don't know of any incumbent that is being primaried in the Democratic side. But you can't say that about the Republicans, because not only did we have Cassidy defeated in a primary, the senator from two-term senator in Louisiana, but we saw what happened to all those state senators in Indiana. You just look across the board. We saw what just happened to Thomas Massey and what's happening in Texas with Cornyn and all. And that, so the Republicans are primarying people all over the country. I'm not sure what the analogy is there, but the Democrats, I can't think of any incumbent Democrat that is being internally primaried, not in a serious way. Can you?
No, really, they're not. And if they are, they're coming from the left, the progressives like AOC. May Vang in Sacramento, she's primarying an incumbent Democrat. And that the one she's primarying, I forget her name, she is of the left-leaning progressives also, not near as bad as this May Vang. And I hope California wakes up. Look at what's going on in your state. The good thing about that is the guy that's running against Karen Bass, Pratt is his last name. He's gaining momentum. And to me, when you listen to him, Miranda Devine had him on and they did an interview with him. He's got some good policies and he's running for the right reason. He just says, I'm fed up with what's going on. And I remember feeling like that when I ran. I was fed up. In fact, our slogan was had enough. Just enough of the BS, the ineffectiveness, things never getting fixed. And so I wish him the best of luck.
Yeah, he's got even though I agree with you, he's running a great campaign, it's 4-1 Democrats over Republicans in LA County out there. So he's got a tough road to hoe. And of course, and I'm joking now, so people don't think I'm being serious, that Karen Bass, she just came out with a great policy, no tax on tents. That if you're living in a tent, you may not have to pay a tax. But we're going to shift.
Oh my God! Don't tell Zohran Madani he'll do a P-to-tier tax on them if they're not living in it.
Tents, man.
They're not living in it full time.
But you're talking about the guy that is running for mayor out there. I mean, all the nonsense they talk about the homelessness. Oh, they're doing this or that, and he goes, they're out there mainly because they're drug addicts. They don't want to leave the streets. And he's true about 90% of them probably do fall in that, but you'll never hear the left ever talk about that one way or another.
No.
They're victims of society, always.
Victims of society. You give people enough of what they want, and they'll stay exactly where they're at. And that's what the Democrats have done to keep them voting for Democrats. Why do you want a constituency made up of indigents and people that just want handouts? I want people that believe in America, believe in the American dream, that want to go out there and accomplish that. And I want to help them do that. And these other people are saying, it's not your fault. The AOC, no, it's not your fault. You're not wealthy. You don't need to be wealthy. We're going to take care of you. You know, it's two different options you have, and one requires work and the other one doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's switch gears a little bit because, you know, I think it was Friday's show. It might have been Monday's last week when I talked about the Russia-Ukraine war. And I said then, and I'm saying it now, I hope that I'm wrong. But I think, good or bad, this war is about to come to a head. I believe that over the course of this summer, going into the fall, and maybe not even then, it's going to come to an end. And I don't mean that necessarily as good news, because I think it's going to get really bad before it gets better. And evidence of that, Russia just hit Ukraine with a Orishnik missile, which is a supersonic missile, the first time they've used that in what one of the war's biggest attacks on Kyiv. What are your thoughts on that, Ted? I know we talked about it a little bit before, but I really believe that we're hitting a critical mass over there, about to. Anyway.
No, I think you are. I think both sides are running out, and they're seeing that they're running out of resources, or running out of people willing to serve, and that it's the crescendo, like in a fireworks show. You know, it's building up to the crescendo, and you can hear William Tell's overture, you know, playing, and you know, I think you're right. I think you're going to see this because I read an article or saw the headline today. Putin says he didn't think he could win in 140 years on that war. I don't know if that's just stuff he's saying to put them off their guard, but God, I sure hope it comes to an end for both sides, mainly the Ukrainians, because it was the Russians that caused this.
Well, you know, all the focus in the media, it's interesting how they switch their focus, because it was all about Ukraine, just constantly, I stand with Ukraine and all that. But now it's all about Iraq. And I don't think it's because they care more about Iranians. Iranians, I'm saying Iranians or Ukrainians or Russia. I think they think that the war in Iran is more damaging to Trump. That's why they're focusing on that. It's Trump derangement syndrome. But what do you think President Trump should, could, would, or will do what's happening, assuming I'm correct in what I'm saying about the escalation over there? What do you think President Trump should do or will do, or what? What are your thoughts on that, Ted?
I think this close to the primaries, I think he's going to stay as quiet as he can. What I wished he would have done is followed the advice of George Washington: honest and open trade with all nations, entanglement with none. You know, again, we're here. We can't change it. We can't go back. We can't unbreak the China that was broken in the China shop. We've got to pick sides to who we're going to support. You look at what's going on in Germany. They want us out of Germany. The far left in Germany, and even some of the moderates, want American troops gone. And so we're going to do that. But of course, we're putting them in Poland. And by doing that, is that going to embolden Russia more? This is why foreign policy is so critical, that you can walk with a softly with a big stick. You know, it's the sign of peace, you know, that you don't want to use your weapons. So what do I think Trump will do? I think he'll support as much support as he can to Ukraine, and then try to play nice with Putin. But it's one of those things that, hindsight, he should have locked arms with NATO when Russia went in there into Ukraine, and really put the pressure on NATO to stand up to Putin as a bloc. And so I don't know what he's going to do, John. Ask me tomorrow and I'll tell you what he did today.
I hear you. Well, we only got about 5 minutes left in the show, so I want to switch gears on a topic that I have to admit I know very little about, and that is this anti-weaponization fund. I'm going to ask you to explain it to us, Ted. But before we do, I'm going to play a video from another Ted Cruz, because he said on his podcast that he'd never seen a fight quite like this. Let's play that, and when we come back, we'll turn it over to our Ted to tell us what the heck is going on with this.
The administration's $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund after Republicans pushed back on acting Attorney General Todd Blanche over using taxpayer money to pay out the president's allies.
The Republican senators were pissed. There were multiple senators yelling at the attorney general saying this feels like self-dealing. This feels like Trump cut a deal with himself.
A new lawsuit to block the administration's $1.8 billion anti-weaponization.
Ted, help me understand this, because I admit, as a crew member, I don't understand, Captain, what's going on up there. Enlighten us, please.
We don't want to tell you all the secrets we're doing up in the helm here, John. That's why we want to keep you rowing in the bowels of the ship. The anti-weaponization fund is, if you remember, the IRS released records of Donald Trump's taxes, all of his taxes, his kids' taxes, all of his business taxes, and they did that. There was a leaker in the IRS. The IRS should never have done that, and they admitted they should never have done that. So he sued the federal government. I think it was for $6 to $15 billion in there, and they settled for $1.5 billion. And so Trump says he's not going to take it, so he's going to open this anti-weaponization fund. So the way the Republicans in the Senate and the House, coming up to the midterms, you're starting to see them being emboldened and pushing against Trump. There's very little support of this in the House or the Senate. Some people are supporting it. But what it sounds like a slush fund to pay people that are buddying up with Trump and that he'll protect them, that have the federal government's gone after them. I think in the purpose of it, I can understand why he'd want to do it, but I don't think, again, it's federal, it's taxpayer money that went to Trump. What he does with it is up to him, and I would not have it part of the government. And he's alienating people, and this is when he really needs them going into the midterms and getting the rest of his agenda done. And John, this goes beyond him. If we lose the momentum we have, this nation will collapse. It'll be a socialist at best nation, but you're going to have the wrong people in charge of this.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those areas that I'm not sure that I can support the president in this aspect of it, and he may,
I'm with you,
cut me out, so to speak, even though I'm not really in. I have issues with it as well. And the biggest issue beyond whether it's the right thing to do or not is right now, if you care about this nation, and I know Donald Trump cares about this nation, all the focus politically pretty much should be on holding the House and the Senate, because absent that, it's going to hamstring the president. They're going to try to impeach him, all of that, and it's going to take us off the America First, the MAGA, Make America Great Again trajectory we're on. And here's the thing, Ted, people need to understand, one day Donald Trump is going to be gone. We can't put all of our faith to lead us out of this hole by one person. Yes, we've had great people in our history that help get us where they are, and individuals make a tremendous difference, but it's the collection of greatness that has enabled America to be where it's at. So one day Donald Trump will ride off into the sunset, Father Time always wins, that kind of thing. So we got to set up America to not only be great again, but to stay great. Educate, motivate, activate people. So when I look at this, even though I don't totally understand it, and you did a great job of explaining it, my concern is it takes us off the focus of the prize, which is to keep us on track to save this country. Anything that takes us off of that, I'm concerned with.
Well, you know what? You brought out something. It's a pet peeve of mine. That's why the Republicans, they're like the pinball dropped in the old pinball machine with the little flippers in there. They don't have a long-term strategy. This is where we need a politician to step up and say, this is the way, folks. This is an American agenda. This is the roadmap. This is the blueprint of where America will be 25, 50, 100 years from now. Not to edify China, but they had a 100-year marathon plan, and they followed it very succinctly, and that's why they're as successful as they are in doing what they've done, other than to give freedom to their people. They can't exist with free thinking people in their country. So if the Republicans don't have an agenda saying we're going to be energy secure for the next 50 years, I don't care what happens to the Ayatollah. I don't care what happens to the Straits of Hormuz. We've got the energy here. We're going to be energy secure. We're going to make our own pharmaceuticals in this country so that we're not depending on the drug 30 to 100% coming from China. We're going to be dependent or independent on all these other things. China controls 90% of the drones in the world, John. So why are we allowing China to make drones? And we need to get into the step up the semiconductor race, because China is stealing and copying everything we're doing, and they're advancing. They're neck and neck with us. We need to focus on the things that make America stronger. It's education, it's energy independence, it's fiscal responsibility, and getting back to the basics. When everything gets this complicated, get back to the basics, and we're not doing that. And this thing with Trump, with the anti-weaponization fund, if he wants to do that, do it in his private life. But like you said, he is here but for a season. That's where the agenda needs to be there, that this is what not just the Republicans, but America believes in, the movement of America. And if we focus on those things, you get what you focus on. And if you're just all over the road, bouncing back and forth, you don't get any, you don't achieve. You just go back and forth and you get frustrated, and it usually costs a lot. If you sit there and focus on where you want to go and you get a buy-in from the American people, we'll make a moon program. We'll get to the moon. We'll do these things that advances not just the United States, but humanity in general forward. And that's where I get so frustrated with Congress, because they don't have a long-term vision.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to do it for our show today. But before we go off the air, I just want to give a little bit of a prayer shout out to Tulsi Gabbard. She is resigning because her husband apparently has some rare form of bone cancer, and she is a veteran herself. So I just want to say prayers for Ms. Gabbard and her family. And close us out, Ted, on this Memorial Day weekend.
Well, I think we all need to take a time, like John said in the beginning, to remember what Memorial Day is about. Celebrate it with your family, have a barbecue, say a prayer, and thank the veterans that serve this country, the service members that paid the ultimate price for America and for our liberties and freedoms, that it should continue on, and that something will fall from the heavens and hit May Vang in the head and say, you know what, I was wrong about not pledging allegiance to this nation. You guys take care. We appreciate you watching. Don't forget to share our podcast far and wide with your network. And we thank all of our sponsors, especially Archer Automotive in Archer, Florida. Have a great day and holiday.
Peace out, everybody.